a young man, hungry and looking for food, heads to a supermarket. Before he can enter, people rush out in panic, and he stops in confusion. At the same time, two girls flee from the store and crash into him, sending all three to the ground. The cause soon appears. A criminal emerges, chasing the girls with a knife, intent on killing them. The young man hesitates, ready to run, but notices the girls still on the ground, shaking and crying. He gathers his resolve and steps forward, facing the criminal. Using all his strength, he pushes the man away, knocking him down, and tells the girls to escape. As they run, the criminal retaliates, stabbing the young man before fleeing the scene. The young man collapses, his life slipping away as people gather around him. The girls cry beside him, but his expression remains calm, satisfied that he was able to save them. His life ends there. He opens his eyes again, now as a small boy. Disoriented, he assumes he is in a hospital and believes he was placed in a special room because he saved others. He notices a maid cleaning a vase and reacts in surprise. She sees that he is awake, cries out, calling him Master Cain, and rushes off to bring his mother. She asks if he remembers her and holds him tightly, her concern evident. Cain struggles to understand what is happening. He looks into a mirror and sees a young child staring back at him, unable to recognize himself. He rises slowly, unsettled, trying to grasp how he ended up like this. He moves his hands, testing whether this body is truly his. His mother, clearly worried, asks if he feels well and explains that he had been suffering from a fever. She urges him to rest and offers to prepare his favorite soup. The maid, Sylvia, is asked to prepare the meal. Cain's mother, Sarah, leaves him to rest. Alone, Cain reflects on what happened and realizes that he has been given a second life in this child's body. Sylvia returns with soup, and Cain eats quietly. When she asks if he likes it, he answers honestly, which pleases her. She begins telling him about his life in this world. Later, Cain joins his family for a meal and learns more about them. His father is Garm, a noble with great influence in the town. His mother is Sarah, and he has an older sister, Renee, 2 years his senior. He also learns that Sarah is Garm's second wife. Garm's first wife, Maria, bore 2 sons, Jin and Alec, making Cain the third son. Their family holds a high rank and commands a private army responsible for protecting the kingdom's borders. Through Sylvia, Cain learns that this world contains adventurers and monsters. The existence of magic draws his attention, and he expresses a desire to try it, but Sylvia advises him to learn writing first. During another family meal, Renee tells their father that Cain can already write and solve algebra problems on his own. Garm is impressed. Cain remains silent, aware that his child's body holds the mind of a former high school student. His mother calls him a genius. Cain credits Sylvia's teaching, which leaves her deeply moved. Garm asks what prompted Cain's sudden dedication, noting how much he has changed since his illness. Cain replies that he wants to understand this world. Garm approves, encouraging his curiosity, though he reminds Cain that he will not inherit the family estate. He still considers this a strong step toward Cain's future. Cain asks permission to read books on the kingdom's history and magic, and his father agrees. His mother asks if he is interested in magic, and Renee notes that Cain will need his magic level assessed first. Garm explains that this assessment can only take place once Cain turns 5, though he may study in the meantime. His mother reassures him, and Cain accepts this calmly. In his room, Cain secretly attempts magic for the first time and successfully creates a small flame. When Sylvia enters, he quickly hides it and insists nothing is wrong. After she leaves, Cain reflects on how easily he used magic and tries again, this time releasing more power. A large fire forms, and he struggles to control it before hiding it once more as Sylvia and Renee enter. Sylvia leaves, but Renee stays behind. Renee reveals that she knows what Cain has been doing. She offers to teach him about magic and the kingdom's history, which spans more than 300 years. She explains that the first king was an adventurer named Yuya, a detail that makes Cain suspect a connection to his previous world. As time passes, Cain grows eager to see the outside world. 2 years later, he turns 5 and heads to have his level assessed, but arrives late, worrying his family. After apologizing, they proceed with the ceremony in their town, traveling by carriage. Cain takes in the surroundings quietly and asks Renee about magic detection. She demonstrates it, and Cain is surprised to discover that she can use 3 magic elements, a rare ability. They arrive at the assessment site, where the supervisor casts a spell on Cain. Through it, Cain encounters the 7 legends of the magical world, each granting him extraordinary abilities. When the process ends, he returns to his family and his father asks him to show his status. Cain senses that something is wrong and excuses himself, saying he needs to use the bathroom. Alone, he checks his status and is stunned to see it far beyond normal limits, reaching level 10 when the highest possible level should be 5. Realizing the danger of this, he searches for a solution and discovers he can alter his own status. He carefully adjusts the numbers before returning. Later, the family gathers at home for a meal. Cain apologizes for running off and making them wait. Renee asks if his stomach is all right, and he reassures her, thanking her for worrying about him. Garam suggests they celebrate Cain's 5th birthday, while Sarah reflects on the intense light that appeared during the assessment. She remarks that she had never seen anything like it, even though both she and Renee had gone through the same process before. Garam asks Cain whether he checked his status. Cain replies that he received support from many legends. His father praises this, and Renee agrees. Cain then shows them his status, and the room falls silent. Garam reacts in shock, pointing out that Cain received the blessing of all 7 legends, and possesses overwhelming magical power. Even Imperial Court magicians hold only a fraction of it, despite being adults. He notes Cain's artifact box and wisdom, concluding that any path Cain chooses will surely succeed. The family celebrates his abilities, but Garam quickly becomes serious. He warns Cain never to reveal his status to others, as it could draw attention from other nations. He orders the servants to keep everything they heard to themselves. Cain retreats to his room, relieved that the assessment is finished. While looking through books, he finds one on summoning magic and grows curious, imagining harmless creatures. After making sure Sylvia is nowhere nearby, he slips into an empty corner of the courtyard and attempts the spell. Instead of what he expected, a massive and menacing monster appears. Cain freezes in shock. Nearby, Parma, who was playing in the garden, becomes terrified and falls to the ground. Renee rushes to her, trying to calm her down despite her own fear. Cain steps forward and tells them to run, but neither can move. As the monster looms closer, Cain recalls the moment from his previous life when he stood between danger and others. Drawing on that resolve, he uses his magic and manages to send the creature back. The effort drains him completely, and he collapses. Parma and Renee rush to his side. As his vision fades, Cain notices Parma's cat ears, realizing for the first time that she is a cat human. Unable to speak or move, he can only think as Renee cries beside him. After a moment, Cain regains his strength and stands up, confirming to himself that he is still alive. Renee and Parma react with relief, and Renee offers to call their father. Cain stops her, saying he is fine and apologizing for making her worry. Relieved, she embraces him. Soon after, preparations begin for Cain's first public appearance at his 5th birthday celebration, attended by many noble families. Before the event, his father speaks to him privately, reminding him that as the 3rd son, he will not inherit any land. He then asks what Cain wishes to become in the future. Cain answers calmly that he wants to travel, help people wherever he goes, and live as an adventurer. After the celebration, the family sits down to eat. His father explains that becoming an adventurer will require serious study and promises to arrange a private tutor for him. Cain reacts with clear excitement, and Sylvia shares in his happiness. The following day, Cain waits eagerly, imagining what his tutor might be like, picturing all kinds of possibilities. Sylvia calls for him and says the tutor has arrived. Unable to contain himself, Cain teleports straight to the gate, only to fall from the sky and crash into one of them. He immediately apologizes in a panic. A servant introduces the tutors as Millie and Nina. Cain steadies himself and introduces who he is. The tutors are then presented to the family. Millie, visibly nervous, explains that she is a rank D adventurer. Nina introduces herself calmly and quietly, revealing that she is an elf. Millie quickly scolds her for being too relaxed in front of a noble family. Cain's father tells them they will be responsible for teaching Cain over the next 3 years, and asks them to look after him well. Millie suggests they begin right away. They move to the training ground, where Millie starts with sword practice. She asks Cain to swing the sword while they observe. His movements are precise and controlled, far beyond what she expected. Millie struggles to understand how a child his age can handle a blade so well. Nina quietly suggests that he might already be stronger than Millie herself, which Millie immediately rejects. To confirm it, Millie proposes a mock battle and tells Cain to attack seriously. Cain follows her instruction and his skill forces her on the defensive. Shocked, Millie asks if he is truly only 5 years old. Cain confirms it and mentions his recent level assessment, leaving both tutors stunned. His attacks continue and Millie barely manages to block them. Nina asks whether Cain has a combat skill, and he confirms it, explaining that his father told him not to mention it outside the family. Exhausted, Millie ends the duel, admitting she cannot keep up. She suggests that Nina take over and begin teaching magic. Nina reveals that she possesses level 3 magic and starts with the basics. Cain, already familiar from books, demonstrates fire, water, and earth magic. He casts each spell without incantation, leaving both tutors speechless. Millie points out that he has affinities for all elements, something Nina says should be impossible, even among Imperial Court magicians. When Nina asks if he also has a magic skill, Cain answers honestly, deepening their shock. Cain takes towels from his artifact box and offers them casually. Millie states that nothing will surprise her anymore, while Nina quietly calls him a genius. Millie then concludes that training Cain inside the palace is no longer possible and suggests moving outside instead. Cain reacts eagerly, admitting that he has not left the palace since his assessment. Millie agrees that training outdoors would be safer given his power, and Nina praises his strength. Cain's father is surprised by the request but accepts it under strict conditions. They must return before sunset, stay close at all times, and make sure Cain understands the kingdom's boundaries. Cain agrees calmly. The next day, they head out together to train beyond the palace grounds. Cain feels genuine excitement, thinking that the world of adventure is exactly as he imagined. They reach a distant area, and Nina resumes magic training. She points to a massive rock and instructs him to strike it with medium-level magic. Cain agrees and chooses fire. The spell erupts with overwhelming force, destroying the rock completely and sending shockwaves through the area. Cain freezes and apologizes, admitting he may have used too much power. Nina tells him that what he cast was far beyond medium level. Millie adds that such output should have drained most of his mana and asks if he feels any fatigue. Cain answers that he feels perfectly fine. Both tutors are left staring at him in disbelief, unable to comprehend his mana capacity. They ask who he really is. Cain simply replies that his name is Cain and laughs. Their attention is suddenly drawn to a monster approaching them. Millie and Nina prepare to fight, but a wild rabbit appears instead. Millie attacks, but it dodges and charges at Cain. Cain avoids it effortlessly and defeats it with wind magic. They congratulate him on his first monster hunt and ask what he plans to do with it. Cain says he wants to show it to his mother and sister and stores it in his toolbox. Millie smiles and says the first thing she will buy when they return is a magic bag. Cain asks what a magic bag is, and Nina explains that it is a rare magical tool similar to a toolbox, but far more expensive. With time still left, Millie suggests continuing the hunt. She asks Nina to use search magic. Nina reports that 3 monsters are 300 meters away. Cain is impressed and asks how the spell works. Nina explains that she spreads her magic thinly to detect other magic signatures. Cain tries it himself and immediately locates 4 rabbit monsters at the same distance. Both tutors stare at him in disbelief, asking again whether he is truly only 5 years old, knowing how difficult it is to succeed with that magic on the first attempt. Cain rushes toward the rabbits, and together they quickly hunt 3 of them, while the last one escapes toward the forest. As Cain prepares to chase it, Millie and Nina stop him at once, warning him not to enter the forest, where powerful monsters roam. Millie explains that every few years, monsters from that forest attack the city. Cain understands then why the city walls are so heavily fortified, and tells her he understands. Millie advises him to grow strong enough to defend the city when that time comes, and Cain agrees without hesitation. After returning, Cain checks his status and notices that his level has risen to 8. He is surprised, knowing all he did was hunt a few rabbits. As he examines his settings more closely, he discovers that a special feature has activated, allowing his growth to increase 100-fold when he evolves. The realization unsettles him. He thinks that if others were to learn about his condition, they would not simply monitor him, but might try to eliminate him. He decides that, above all, he wants to enjoy adventures in this world without fear. The next day, before heading out to hunt, Millie and Nina take him to the Adventurers Guild. Millie tells him they believe he is now capable of hunting stronger monsters, which fills Cain with excitement at the thought of becoming an adventurer. Inside the guild, Cain looks around with interest. The receptionist introduces herself as Roddy. Millie asks her for a mission involving monsters stronger than killer rabbits. Roddy says she will check for a wolf hunting request, though such missions have not appeared recently. Millie remarks that a wolf mission would suit Cain well. Roddy looks surprised and asks whether the request is for the young boy. She then asks Cain his age. Nina explains that Cain is the son of the feudal lord, which makes Roddy immediately tense. Cain politely introduces himself and says that he is 5 years old, meaning he cannot register as an adventurer yet. At that moment, a rough-looking adventurer enters and begins harassing Millie and Nina. He mocks them for bringing along a child and accuses them of wasting time on trivial jobs. The man and his companions provoke them further until Millie and Nina restrain the group. Cain steps forward and asks the man to stop, saying he is interfering with their training. The adventurer demands to know who Cain is. Cain answers that he is Cain, a student of Millie and Nina. They urgently tell him to run and get away from there, but before he can move, Cain strikes the man, sending him to the ground. When the adventurer tries to rise and attack again, Cain defeats him once more and pins him down. The man asks who he really is, and Cain replies that he is Cain, the son of the Margrave. Enraged, the adventurer grabs a weapon and attacks, but Cain calmly avoids every strike, catches the weapon between his fingers, restrains the man completely, and throws him out of the guild. He does the same to the other two bullies, removing them without effort. Millie and Nina thank Cain for stepping in and suggest they continue to the forest. They train his magic for a while, hunt monsters after sharing a meal, and then return to the palace. The next morning, Cain wakes early, prepares his belongings, changes his bed sheets, and cleans his room. 2 years have passed, and Millie and Nina inform him that they will not renew their contract, as there is nothing more they can teach him. Cain says he understands and adds that there is no reason to keep adventurers bound for so long. He only wonders how best to thank them for their kindness over the past 3 years. He recalls their interest in magic bags. That night, Cain enters the dangerous magic forest to gather materials. He hunts a blood-red ogre to create a red bag for Millie and defeats an earth dragon to obtain green materials for Nina's bag. The immense flames from his battles are spotted by the guards, who believe another large-scale monster attack has begun. The Lord quickly leads his forces toward the forest. When they arrive, Cain is already gone, leaving only his handkerchief behind. Recognizing it, the Lord realizes that Cain was responsible. The following day, Cain hunts a pack of ferocious wolves while Millie and Nina watch. They acknowledge that he has surpassed them both, and say they are proud of him. They tell Cain that he has officially graduated and commend him for his achievements over the past 3 years. Cain thanks them sincerely and presents the magic bags he created from his toolbox. They are stunned to learn he made them himself, and are further amazed by the rarity of the materials. Cain explains that the red bag comes from the blood-red ogre, and the green one from the earth dragon. They are left speechless, knowing that each of those monsters would normally require a full party of A-rank adventurers to defeat, and even then with great difficulty. Cain, only 8 years old, defeated them alone. Nina quietly remarks that this is simply because he is Cain. Their shock deepens when they learn that each bag can store an entire palace. Millie admits that the expensive bag she once planned to buy could only hold a few carts, while what Cain created is worthy of a national treasure. After saying their farewells, they leave. After that, Cain continues training on his own, focusing on hunting. Deep inside a cave, he encounters a red dragon, one of the most powerful kinds. He defeats it with a single strike and pauses in disbelief when it dies instantly. Opening his status window, he sees how far he has grown. His magic value has surpassed 80 million. And his titles now include Enemy of All Monsters and Dragon Slayer. 2 years pass after Millie and Nina leave. Cain travels with his family to the royal capital to officially make his debut, an event required of all noble children. Inside the carriage, Renee speaks excitedly about the time they will spend together in the capital and reminds Cain that he will need to prepare for the academy entrance exam. Their father explains that Cain still has 2 years left since enrollment begins at the age of 12. Cain asks Renee if she is looking forward to the academy, and she answers confidently that she intends to place first in the entrance exam. Cain then asks how long the journey will take. His father replies that it should be about a week, provided no monsters appear along the way. Cain decides to assist the guards by using his monster detection magic and soon discovers a group of monsters attacking travelers several kilometers ahead. He informs his father of the situation. Though surprised, his father listens as Cain insists they must hurry. After assessing the distance, Cain tells him the soldiers will not arrive in time, and that he should go ahead alone. Despite his father's warning, Cain leaps from the carriage and rushes forward at incredible speed. He arrives moments later and defeats all the monsters without difficulty. The soldiers present stare in disbelief at what a small child has accomplished alone. Cain approaches them calmly and introduces himself as Cain, the third son of Margrave Garm. When Garm's forces arrive, they find no monsters remaining. One exhausted soldier collapses, and Cain heals him immediately. He then restores all the wounded at once and gathers the bodies of the fallen to be returned to the capital. At that moment, Garm arrives and notices the royal crest on a nearby carriage, belonging to Duke Santana's household. He asks whether the passengers are safe. When the door opens, Princess Telestia appears alongside Silk, the Grand Duke's daughter. The princess thanks Garm for coming to their aid, and Garm introduces Cain. Cain offers to cast a calming spell, and at Silk's request, he does so. As the tension fades, the two girls begin speaking to him at once. Upon learning that Cain is also heading to the capital, they invite him into their carriage. Cain looks to his father for guidance, but Garm offers no response. As they travel, Telestia asks Cain to call her Teles. He hesitates, saying he cannot address a princess so casually. Silk asks the same, and he refuses again, citing her status. Both persist until he reluctantly agrees. A soldier later reports that they are approaching the town of Renoma. They stop briefly to rest, then continue on, reaching the royal capital after several days. Upon arriving at the palace, the captain of the knights is surprised to see the princess and the duke's daughter holding tightly to Cain's arm. He learns that Cain is the one who saved them and the soldiers. Introducing himself as Dean, he thanks Cain and accepts the bodies of the fallen so they may be laid to rest. As Cain prepares to leave, Dean informs him that the king wishes to see him. Cain is taken aback and asks what reason there could be. Cain is brought before the king in the royal chamber, where the highest, ranking nobles are assembled. He greets the king and stands beside Teles and Silk. At the king's request, he raises his head as the royal assistant recounts everything Cain has done, from rescuing the princess to defeating the monsters alone and healing the soldiers. The nobles react in shock at what a child has accomplished. The king declares his reward. Cain is granted the title of Baron, 10 platinum coins, and a private mansion in the capital. Some nobles protest, claiming it is unreasonable for a child so young to receive such honors. One speaks out loudly, but the king silences him, asking whether he could have achieved the same. He states that the decision stands and asks Cain if he will accept it. Cain agrees. After dismissing the assembly, the king invites Cain and Garm to a private room. Garm expresses his pride, admitting he never expected his third son to receive a noble title, and noting that Cain is the first among his children to be promoted. The royal family joins them. And the king explains that this is an informal meeting. Both the king and the duke thank Cain for saving their daughters. The king then turns the conversation to Cain's future. Garm remarks that he believed noble titles were reserved for orphan children of fallen houses. The king responds that the kingdom cannot allow a talent like Cain's to stand alone, which is why he named him a baron and ensured he would receive a proper salary under royal law. Finally, the king and the duke declare that Cain will be engaged to both Teles and Silk. The scene shifts, revealing that this outcome was planned from the beginning by the king, the duke, and the assistant to ensure Cain would remain bound to the kingdom. Unsure how to respond, Cain looks to his father. Garm turns away, making it clear that there is no escape. Cain later travels to the place where the 7 legends reside. As expected, he meets them, and they welcome him warmly. Remarking that he has finally arrived, Cain apologizes for coming so late and explains that he wishes to consult them about an important matter concerning his condition. The leader of the legends observes that Cain's status has reached an abnormal level, and asks whether he intends to evolve and become a legendary being like them. He explains that Cain could stand alongside legends and legendary monsters, but warns him that there are limits to what one individual can accomplish in this world, and that crossing those limits would carry consequences. The leader then suggests that Cain use knowledge from his previous life to create new forms of entertainment in this world. Cain reflects that if he succeeds in doing so, the tools he creates would likely become widely successful. As this thought forms, the other legends gather closer, and the leader asks if that is truly possible. Cain realizes they can read his thoughts and admits it. When they ask again if he can truly make it happen, he answers without hesitation that he can. Afterward, Cain goes shopping with his mother and Rene. Celis and Selic accompany them. Cain grows uneasy among the crowd and suddenly leaves the shop, running outside. There, he notices people with cat ears and recognizes one of them as Parma. She greets him, and Cain rushes over, telling her it has been 5 years since they last met. Parma asks what brought him there, and Cain explains that he is in the royal capital for his debut ceremony. She tells him that she is currently training at her uncle's shop. Her uncle soon arrives and asks whether Cain is her friend, remarking that he seems polite. Parma introduces him as her uncle, Timanus, and then tells him that Cain is a noble. Timanus immediately grows nervous and apologizes for his behavior. Cain reassures him and asks if he may look around the store. Once inside, Cain explains that he wants to create a specific tool. Timanus asks what kind, and Cain replies that he has concrete ideas he would like to share and proposes producing and selling them together. Timanus agrees, and Cain demonstrates a game he has designed. Timanus quickly understands its appeal and remarks that it is easy to learn and could sell well. He asks for permission to produce it. Cain agrees and asks him to make a prototype first, handing over a gold coin to cover the cost. Timanus is taken aback, saying the amount is too much, but Cain insists it should be considered an initial investment. Timanus accepts and promises to devote himself fully to the project as the head of the Sarkin company. When Cain leaves the shop, he finds Renee waiting outside, clearly upset. Startled, Cain realizes he completely forgot about her. She scolds him for disappearing when she wanted to show him the clothes she tried on. Cain quickly reassures her, saying that everything she chose must look wonderful. Pleased by his response, Renee forgives him and says she will show him the clothes once they return home. Back at home, Renee shows him all the outfits she bought. Cain compliments them sincerely. She then tells him that it is his turn to try on clothes, but Sylvia interrupts, informing him that Mr. Timanus is looking for him. Relieved, Cain heads back to the shop. Timanus has already completed the first prototype of the game. Cain is impressed by how quickly it was finished. Timanus admits that it still needs refinement but wanted to present it first. Cain says it matches exactly what he imagined and mentions that the game is called Reversi. Confused by the name, Timanus listens as Cain suggests they try it out. Cain plays the game with Parma and wins while explaining the rules. Timanus grows increasingly enthusiastic, convinced the game will be a success. Cain notes that the game is well known in his original world, and Parma says she wants to play again. Timanus becomes confident in its future. Cain then proposes producing two versions, a standard version for general sale and a higher, quality version for nobles. He explains that nobles and wealthy merchants would prefer a luxurious version, while the standard one should remain affordable. Timanus reacts positively. Cain suggests producing 50 copies of the noble version and 1,000 of the standard version at first, then increasing production depending on demand. Timanus hesitates and admits that the company lacks sufficient funds for such production. He estimates the noble version would cost 50 large silver coins and the standard version 1 silver coin each. Cain responds by handing him 5 gold coins, stating that he will cover all the expenses. Timanus thanks Cain sincerely and promises that the Sarkin company will give its full effort. They draw up a contract soon after, and Cain asks him to prepare a particularly luxurious version for the royal family. Timanus is taken aback and admits that his company is small and lacks the means to create something worthy of royalty. Cain reassures him, saying that he believes in his ability and trusts him. Encouraged, Timanus accepts the task with enthusiasm. Cain then returns home, where Sylvia tells him he has taken too long and that the first appearance ceremony is about to begin. In the carriage, his father remarks that since Cain became a baron at his first meeting with the king, he will surely draw attention during today's event. Cain acknowledges this calmly. His father adds that he should avoid being introduced to other nobles' daughters. Cain replies that he will handle it when the time comes. Garm shakes his head, commenting that it is hard to believe Cain is only 10 years old. Cain arrives at the palace with his parents, admitting that he feels nervous. His father reminds him to remain cautious. Inside the ballroom, they immediately encounter the round-faced noble and his foolish son. Cain ignores them and walks past. Shortly after, Silik calls out to him, and he goes to greet her. The king, Silas, and the queen soon enter, and all the families pay their respects. Garm and his family also greet the royal couple. Later, Cain presents the game he created as a gift to the king, who tells him to visit the reception room after the party. As Cain steps away with his parents, Garm asks whether Cain produced the game without his knowledge. Cain answers honestly, explaining that after becoming a baron, he decided to create the game to secure enough income to maintain his mansion. Garm responds that he finally understands and acknowledges that Cain has taken full responsibility for his own life as a noble. He and Cain's mother then leave him, suggesting he spend some time socializing with the other children. Cain speaks with Silik for a while, until the foolish noble's son approaches her with his group and greets her arrogantly. Silik responds coldly, which irritates the boy and his companions. Believing themselves to be of higher status, they begin to insult Cain. Silik tries to intervene, but Kain stops her, saying they will regret it once they understand the situation clearly. Angered, the boy challenges Kain to step outside and compete. Once outside, Silik admits she is worried, but Kain reassures her that everything will be fine. The group displays weak and unimpressive magic, leaving both Kain and Silik unimpressed. Silik then speaks plainly, telling them they are mistaken. She explains that Kain is the son of Margrave Garm and a baron himself, not the son of a mere baron. Realizing their error, the boys turn pale, apologize repeatedly, and flee at once. Kain heads to the king's reception room, where he meets the royal assistant, and receives the key to his castle along with a map. The assistant explains that the king originally intended to meet him, but was convinced to finish his official duties first and then enjoy playing the new game with him afterward. Kain quietly feels relieved. At that moment, the Duke enters and greets him, saying he finally caught him. He declares that he has come to challenge Kain in the game. He sets the board down and urges him to begin. Kain agrees. The assistant immediately announces that he wants to play next, and before long, people throughout the castle gather, all eager for their turn. Kain realizes he has placed himself in an awkward position. After managing to finish all the matches, Kain studies the map and locates his castle. What he finds troubles him. The place is abandoned and completely ruined. He opens the heavy iron gate and steps inside, hoping no one will visit him for a while. The interior is dark and the magic stones that power the castle have long been depleted. Kain inspects each room carefully, then uses his magic to repair and restore the entire structure. The walls, halls, and even the garden return to pristine condition. Seeing the result, he accepts it as his new home. Soon after, Sylvia arrives with several servants. She tells Kain that they will now serve him fully in his new residence. One of the servants introduces himself as Colin, Kain's new attendant. Kain replies that he already knows about him from Sebastian, the head servant. Sylvia orders the maids to begin cleaning, but they quickly realize that the castle is already spotless. Kain apologizes, explaining that he cleaned everything with magic. Sylvia responds calmly that she expected as much, leaving Colin surprised that she anticipated it. Colin informs Kain that arrangements will be handled and that Kain should return to Lord Garm's castle, since today is an important day. Kain freezes, suddenly remembering that it is the day his older brothers return home. He meets them soon after. One brother remarks that he never expected Kain to receive a noble title and a castle before them. The other praises Kain, saying he is a younger brother they can truly be proud of. Renee expresses excitement about seeing Kain's castle. Her brothers tease her, warning that the castle is rumored to be haunted and filled with strange things. Renee grows uneasy and asks if Kain will protect her. Kain reassures her that there is nothing to fear, though she admits she heard the place was completely abandoned. Kain travels to the castle with his parents and Renee. They are stunned to find it fully restored, clean, and shining. Garm is confused, recalling that the castle was in ruins when he last saw it years ago. He turns to Kain and asks if he was responsible. Kain replies that he only made some adjustments and cleaned it with magic. As they explore further, Garm points out that, while the castle is beautiful, it lacks artworks. Kain questions whether such things are necessary. Garm explains that nobles place great importance on decorations such as paintings, vases, armor, and even golems, and that it is considered proper form. Kain responds that golems alone should be enough. He asks them to wait briefly, then places one. Moments later, Sylvia screams from elsewhere in the castle. Everyone rushes toward the sound, fearing an attack, and find a red dragon standing at the entrance. The servants panic, believing it to be alive. Kain checks if everyone is safe and realizes he forgot to explain. Garm stares in shock and asks what Kain has done this time. Kain explains that it is a red dragon golem. Garm asks how he obtained it. Kain admits he defeated the dragon in the forest. Garm is stunned, stating that a red dragon is a catastrophic level monster that even A-rank adventurers would struggle to defeat. He tells Kain to explain such matters to the servants beforehand. Colin assures him that he will handle it. Suddenly, Kain's mother screams from another room. They rush to her, and she asks what kind of bathroom Kain has created. Kain explains that he designed it based on the facilities from his previous world. At first, Garm questions her excitement, but after trying it himself, he becomes equally impressed and asks Kain to install the same setup in his own castle. Garm then informs Kain that he must host a welcoming party for all nobles, as required by tradition. Kain is shocked at the thought of yet another formal event. As he wonders how to manage it all, Colin steps forward and says he anticipated this and has already prepared a list of tasks. Cain thanks him and reviews the list, noticing that it includes inviting all nobles, even the troublesome one with the round face. Cain asks if he truly must invite him. Colin confirms that it is unavoidable. Cain then wonders what kind of gift he should prepare for the guests, while Sylvia reassures him that everything will work out. The next day, Cain prepares to leave the royal palace and encounters Dean, the deputy commander of the knights. Dean greets him and asks what he is doing there. Cain explains that the king's assistant advised him to store some monster materials within the palace. Dean replies that he was already informed and leads Cain to inspect possible storage locations. When none seem suitable, Dean suggests placing them in the courtyard so the soldiers can relocate them later. Cain agrees and summons the materials at once. Earth dragons and blood, red goblins appear in front of them, leaving Dean speechless. He mutters that Cain is unbelievable, and asks whether Cain defeated all these monsters on his own. He then questions whether Cain is some kind of hero or legendary follower. Cain hurriedly denies it, insisting that he is only the son of Margrave Garm. Dean responds that he will choose to believe that. As Cain turns to leave, Dean stops him again and asks where he is going. He explains that he wanted Cain to help train the knights, and suggests that Cain meet the knight commander as well. Cain is surprised and asks which commander. Dean replies that their commander enjoys fighting strong opponents, and suggests Cain show his skills. Cain hesitates, then agrees. Dean brings Cain to the knights and introduces him as the Baron who saved the princess and defeated a group of orcs and their leader. Cain asks where the commander is. Dean tells him not to worry and says she will appear once the mock battle begins. Cain imagines a fearsome figure, but Dean reassures him and orders the mock battle to start. One knight protests, pointing out that Cain is only a child. Dean ignores the objection and has that knight face Cain. Cain defeats him instantly. As Cain tries to leave again, Dean stops him, clearly impressed, and suggests increasing the challenge. He proposes that Cain face several knights at once, then orders all of them to attack together. Before the clash escalates, a voice interrupts the scene. The commander arrives and demands to know why the knights have drawn their swords against a child. She is an elf named Tigana. Assuming Cain is an ordinary boy, she pats him gently and tells him not to be afraid, saying she is there to protect him. She scolds Dean for allowing the situation to continue, but Dean quickly explains who Cain really is and what he has accomplished. Hearing this, Tigana's attitude shifts. She declares that she must fight Cain herself. Dean suggests that she introduce herself first, but she refuses, saying that those who fight with swords introduce themselves through combat. She challenges Cain to a duel on the spot. Cain grows nervous and asks her to wait, pointing out that the only weapon he has is a wooden sword. Tigana answers that it is fine, explaining that she has dulled her blade. The duel begins. Their exchange quickly draws attention, as Cain's strength and control overwhelm expectations. Even Tigana struggles to keep up. After an intense exchange, Cain defeats her. Instead of anger, Tigana reacts with excitement. She leaps up and declares that she has decided to marry Cain. The surrounding knights freeze in shock. Cain panics and protests, reminding her that he is only 10 years old and that he does not even know her. Tigana calmly acknowledges this and finally introduces herself as Tigana von Liebert, the knight commander bearing the honorary title of Count, and the daughter of Duke Liebert, who governs the northern forest. Cain immediately hides behind Dean and insists that she cannot decide such a thing without her father's approval. Tigana waves off his concern and says he need not worry, explaining that she already told her family she would not return home without choosing a partner. Cain explains that while the situation may suit her, he cannot make such a decision on his own and needs time to consult others. He turns to Dean for support, but Dean avoids his gaze and pretends to be asleep. Tigana accepts Cain's request, agreeing that they should not decide something so important by themselves. Cain thanks her for understanding, only to be caught off guard when she declares that she intends to consult the king directly. The statement unsettles Cain, knowing the king is also the father of one of his fiancées. They head to the king at once, where Duke Eric, the king, and Garm are already gathered. The king asks Cain why he requested an urgent meeting, noting that he was supposed to be handling monster resources with the knights. Tigana steps forward and states plainly that she brought Cain because she decided to marry him. The room falls silent. The king asks Cain to explain everything from the beginning. Cain admits that all he did was duel with her and defeat her, which somehow led to this outcome. The king asks whether Cain informed her about Princess Silas and Miss Silas. Cain replies that it was meant to remain secret, so he did not mention it. Garm then asks whether Cain understands Tigana's position within the kingdom. Cain answers that he only knows she serves as the Knight Commander. Garm responds that he expected as much, and the king explains further. He says that the land of Liebert, Tigana's homeland, was once an independent elven state. Due to constant wars and repeated abductions, because of their beauty, the elves were placed under the protection of the kingdom by decree of the first king, Yoja. Though it remains a distinct territory, it is officially part of the kingdom. The king then explains that Tigana is, by origin, a princess, and that Cain has effectively received a proposal of marriage from her. He asks Cain whether he understands the weight of this situation. The king tells Tigana that the matter is still confidential, but reveals that Cain is already engaged to Princess Silas and Miss Silas. Rather than retreat, Tigana becomes even more determined. The king agrees to consider it, on the condition that she first obtain her father's consent. Tigana accepts and immediately takes Cain with her, resuming their duels while preparing a letter to send home. The next day, Cain attempts to escape from Tigana and runs into Dean, who escorts him to the king for another matter. They explain that they suspect Cain may be a superhuman hero similar to the first king and have prepared a test. When Cain enters the chamber, they show him a book belonging to the first king. Cain does not recognize it at first, but they explain it is the most advanced magical tome in the kingdom, and allow him to read it. The book is extraordinary, and their expressions change when they see Cain reading it with ease. The text is written in Japanese. At that moment, Cain's secret becomes clear. The king asks Cain who he truly is. With no way to avoid it, Cain explains that he was reborn into this world with memories from his previous life in Japan, the same land as the first king, and that he learned many things from the 7 legends when he met them. The revelation that Cain met the 7 legends leaves everyone stunned. Cain explains everything in detail and reveals his true nature. Though astonished, the others listen as Cain tells them that he is satisfied with his current life and does not want anything to change. He wishes to remain Garm's son and live as he always has. The king agrees, assuring Cain that in this kingdom, he will always be Garm's son and has nothing to fear. The king then adds that Cain is meant to become the future king, shocking everyone present, including Cain himself. Before the room can react further, Tigana bursts in, presenting a letter containing her father's consent to the marriage. Without hesitation, she grabs Cain and drags him away. Afterward, Duke Eric tells the king not to worry about Cain. The way he carries himself proves that he will always belong to them. Laughter fills the room. The king agrees and gives a final order that nothing discussed there is to be spoken of again, not even to family members. With that understanding, the meeting comes to an end. Cain sits quietly, reading the book written by the first king, Yuya. The text states that anyone capable of reading it must also be from another world. Yuya records that he was originally Japanese and became the first king of this land, writing a chronicle of how he arrived in this world and the events that followed. Cain reads through the details in silence. While he is reading, Silik and Silas approach and ask what he is doing. Silik mentions that the academy entrance exam is approaching and assumes he must be studying. Cain agrees quickly and the two begin arguing over who will study with him. Cain slips away, saying he is not available today or tomorrow. He then runs into Tigana as well, but avoids her too, saying he is unavailable for duels. With that, he heads toward the Adventurers Guild. Today marks his 12th birthday, the age at which he can finally register as an adventurer. He enters the guild and immediately notices that it is far more impressive than the one in his hometown. A red-haired adventurer approaches and asks if it is his first time there. Cain answers that it is and explains that he just turned 12 and came to register. The man wishes him luck and reminds him that adventurers only have one life, advising him not to act recklessly, before walking away. Cain watches him go, feeling that the man looks familiar. Cain approaches the receptionist, who welcomes him and proceeds with his registration, without mentioning his status as a baron. She guides him through the process and asks him to place a drop of blood on a crystal to record his magical abilities on his card. His card is issued at rank G. Cain recalls that Millie and Nina were also ranked G, and wonders how they are doing now. The receptionist tells him he can ask her for information anytime, and Cain thanks her. Realizing she forgot to introduce herself, the receptionist apologizes and tells him her name is Richia. She welcomes him again and reminds him to take care of himself. At that moment, a group of troublemakers begins harassing Richia, and their leader turns his attention toward Cain. Before things escalate, Cain steps in and teaches them a lesson. Just as they are about to draw their weapons, the red-haired adventurer intervenes, frightening them away. Cain thanks him for stepping in. The man says he stopped them for their own sake, noting that Cain would have defeated them easily. He remarks that Cain's movements clearly show great strength and asks for his name. After exchanging names, they sit together for drinks. The man comments on Cain's refined footwork and evasive movements, guessing that he has trained extensively. Cain mentions that he heard Claude belongs to the Ice Flame team. Claude confirms it, explaining that he wields a flame sword while his wife uses ice magic. Cain finds this impressive and comments on fighting alongside one's spouse. Claude advises Cain to find a team quickly, explaining that it allows adventurers to take on harder missions and raise their rank faster. He shows Cain his A-rank gold card. Cain is stunned. Claude adds that even so, he is still far from the level of the first king, whose rank was SSS, marked by a black card. At that moment, Claude's wife arrives and strikes him, demanding to know what he is doing. Claude introduces her as Lena. Cain immediately feels he will like her. Lena hits Claude again and tells him to hurry, as they have a mission. Cain introduces himself, explaining that Claude helped him with some troublesome adventurers. Lena welcomes him and tells him to let her know if anyone gives him trouble. Cain then searches the mission board. Most of the available missions seem dull, until he spots one involving goblin extermination with a generous reward, if all targets are eliminated. Excited, he accepts it. Outside the guild, he encounters Tigana, who is with Dean. Tigana asks what he is doing there, and Dean explains that they are conducting outdoor training today. Tigana immediately insists on joining Cain's first mission. Cain is shocked and asks Dean how she can join when they are supposed to be training. Tigana says she will not miss her husband's first mission as an adventurer. Cain tries to escape, but is quickly caught. He looks to Dean for help, but Dean apologizes, saying he cannot disobey orders. They head toward the goblin's location, and Tigana is clearly pleased to be accompanying Cain. Cain searches ahead and informs her that the goblins are nearby. Tigana rushes forward, challenging Cain to keep up. They arrive to find goblins surrounding an injured man. Cain heals the man with magic, and together they defeat the goblins with ease. Soon after, a larger group appears. Cain casts a protective spell on Tigana, and she cuts down the goblins before her. As the last of them fall, a group of giant lizards emerges. Cain tells Tigana to take the injured man back to town while he handles the situation. Tigana agrees and retreats with the man. Cain then uses overwhelming power to defeat the lizards alone. By coincidence, Millie and Nina are also in the same forest on a mission related to the giant lizards, whose nest is believed to be in the destroyed area. After confirming the situation, they return to their base. Later, Cain returns to the guild and reports to Richia, explaining that he defeated a group of green lizards, and asking whether that counts, since his accepted mission was different. Richia is stunned and first expresses relief that he is unharmed. She explains that the lizard mission was intended for high-ranked or party-based adventurers. When Cain casually adds that he defeated around 30 of them, Richia freezes, then immediately escorts him to the guild master. The guild master introduces himself as Cedric, concealing his true position. He asks Cain how he managed to defeat the giant lizards, pointing out that Cain is a newly registered G-rank adventurer and still a child. Richia immediately speaks up, saying it is unfair to accuse Cain of cheating without any proof. Cain calmly explains that he defeated the lizards through normal combat. Cedric dismisses the explanation and accuses him of cheating. Cain responds sharply, offending both Cedric and Richia in the process. Cedric declares that Cain's adventurer card should be revoked, but the guild master intervenes and asks him to present evidence. Cedric insists that it is impossible for a newly registered adventurer to defeat 30 lizards. The guild master then calls someone into the room. Tigana enters and runs straight to Cain, calling him her dear husband. The room falls silent, as their engagement is still meant to be secret. The guild master bursts into laughter, and reveals that Cain is the child hero who saved the princess and defeated an entire orc army. Cedric freezes in shock. Cain explains that he did not want special treatment at the guild because of his status. The guild master adds that Cain is the son of Margrave Garm and will also be connected to him by marriage if he weds Tigana. Realizing the situation, Cedric panics and repeatedly apologizes to Cain. Cain calmly asks Tigana what the punishment is for insulting a noble. She answers that it is death. Cain then accepts Cedric's apology and advises him not to judge others based on appearance alone. The guild master accepts the monster materials Cain brought back and decides to promote him to rank D. Tigana immediately objects, stating that Cain defeated a red dragon at the age of 10 and is far stronger than she is. After reconsidering, the guild master decides to promote Cain directly to rank A due to his achievements, but sets one condition: Cain must first defeat a group of bandits. Cain asks whether capturing them alive and bringing them in would be acceptable, and the guild master agrees. The guild master apologizes for Cedric's conduct, but Cain assures him that it is not an issue. Cain then receives his gold A rank adventurer card. The next morning, Cain wakes to Sylvia rushing into his room, calling his name and telling him he is late for the academy entrance exam. He calmly tells her there is still time, but she insists and urges him to get dressed and eat breakfast first. Afterward, she keeps apologizing, blaming herself for not preparing properly and worrying that she caused him to be late. Overcome with guilt, she begins to cry. Cain gently reassures her that everything is fine and that he will not be late. With a smile, he uses magic to teleport directly to the academy, laughing as he says he knew he would make it on time. Cain enters the academy, receives his exam number, seat, and assigned class, and looks around the examination hall. He realizes he does not recognize anyone there and wonders whether Silas and Selic were placed in a different room. The teacher enters and announces the start of the exam, warning that cheating is strictly forbidden and that anyone caught will be expelled immediately. The time limit is set at 2 hours. The exam begins, and Cain quickly realizes it is simple. The questions on reading, writing, and arithmetic pose no challenge, and the history section is also easy for someone of noble background. He finishes early and falls asleep at his desk. After some time, the teacher wakes him, asking whether he thinks it is already time to rest, noting that only half an hour has passed. Cain replies that he has completed the entire exam. Surprised, the teacher leaves him alone until time is called. She then announces that the next test will be a magic assessment, which immediately lifts Cain's mood. The students move to the testing grounds, where the teacher instructs them to select a target and cast their strongest spell. Cain asks whether they are allowed to use their full power, which surprises her. She answers that it is fine, explaining that a barrier has been set up to contain the magic. The test begins, and one by one, the students cast spells that barely affect their targets. Cain watches quietly, thinking this must be the natural level of a 12-year-old. When it is Cain's turn, he conjures a blue flame instantly, without any incantation. The spell strikes the target and continues beyond it, destroying the wall and tearing through the forest behind. The area falls silent. Shock spreads across the faces of the teacher and students alike. Cain turns to the teacher and asks why she said everything would be fine if a barrier was in place. The test is immediately halted, and the staff first check whether anyone was injured beyond the wall before moving on to the swordsmanship exam. They gather at the dueling arena, where a high-ranking adventurer has been invited to assist with the evaluation. Several rank A adventurers stand nearby. Among them is Claude, who recognizes Cain at once and asks why he is there. Cain explains that he is 12 years old and taking the entrance exam. Claude decides to act as his opponent. Cain tries to decline, but the teacher insists since Claude volunteered. The duel begins. Cain tells Claude that he is looking forward to learning from him. Claude tells Cain to attack with full strength, assuming he must be skilled if he holds an A rank. Cain uses reinforcement magic and launches his attack. Their swords clash at incredible speed, producing a fierce exchange that leaves the other students unable to follow their movements. Claude, impressed, activates his own reinforcement magic, and the duel intensifies further. The teacher intervenes and stops the match, scolding both of them for going too far and frightening the students. He tells Cain that his abilities are more than clear and dismisses him, instructing him to return when the results are announced. Cain returns home, where Sylvia greets him anxiously and asks about the exam. He tells her that everything went smoothly and that he should pass without trouble. Noticing that he is hungry, Sylvia rushes to prepare food. Later, Cain goes to see the king, who shows him the magic assessment report and asks what happened. Cain explains that the teacher told him to use his full power and assured him that the barrier would handle it. He only used beginner-level magic, but the result was still that destructive. The king asks where Cain took the exam, noting that Celis and Selic did not see him. Cain explains that he entered through the southern gate and went to the room he was directed to. The king tells him that the northern entrance is reserved for nobles, while the southern one is for commoners. Cain realizes his mistake. The king adds that Celis was very upset at not seeing him, and Duke Eric mentions that the academy head personally came to discuss Cain's case. In a brief recollection, the head explains the situation, believing Cain to be a commoner, while the Duke laughs and confirms it was Cain, joking about the repair costs. Back in the present, the king's assistant shows Cain the repair bill and scolds him for overdoing it. The king tells Cain not to worry and says the results will be announced that day. Cain goes to check them and meets Selic, who tells him he placed first in the class, followed by Celis in second and herself in third. She adds that her father told her Cain took the exam with the commoners and destroyed the training grounds. She also mentions that Celis was angry for not seeing him, then leaves. Nearby, Rin is guiding the new students through registration. She spots Cain and runs to him, delighted. She welcomes him warmly, hugs him, and congratulates him on taking first place, wishing him luck for the entrance speech. Cain is surprised and asks if she did not know that the top student gives the welcoming speech each year. Rin replies that she wishes Celis could do it instead. Meanwhile, Sylvia waits anxiously at home. When Cain returns, she asks if he passed. Cain replies that he passed and ranked first in his class. Sylvia bursts into tears, embraces him tightly, and declares that they must celebrate that night. The next day, Cain heads toward the academy, reminding himself to enter through the northern gate reserved for nobles. He notices his parents nearby, raises his hand to greet them, and they return the gesture. Shortly after, he meets Celis and Selic. Around them, students whisper in confusion, wondering who the boy is who walks so casually with the princess and the duke's daughter. The entrance ceremony begins, and an announcement is made that Cain von Silford will speak on behalf of the new students. Cain stands and introduces himself as the top student. He explains that during the entrance exam, he mistakenly entered through the southern gate and took the test in the wrong location. Murmurs spread through the hall. He continues by expressing his gratitude to the academy for forgiving his mistake and treating him the same as any other student. He recalls the words of the kingdom's first king, who believed that education should be equal for all. Cain says that he hopes to make friends at the academy without regard to birth or lineage, and that he wishes for everyone to get along. Applause follows. His parents watch with pride. Soon after, Rin and another student approach him and mention that the king himself is present and will address the students. The king steps forward and welcomes the new class. He comments that some students may be difficult to handle, a remark that seems directed at Cain. He says this is why he came personally, acknowledging that the teachers will have their hands full. Cain senses a warning in the king's tone. Celis and Selic laugh quietly, as do the duke and his assistant. After the ceremony, the students return to their classrooms. Celis and Selic call Cain over, telling him that his seat is beside theirs, then ask why he was late. Cain replies that the king kept reminding him to be careful, which delayed him. The teacher enters and introduces herself as Alika von Portley. She explains that she will be their homeroom teacher and instructs them to choose their fields of study carefully, as it will shape their futures. Cain states that he intends to become an adventurer. Celis and Selic immediately object, reminding him that he is a noble with land to manage and should focus on noble studies. Selic adds that he can choose both paths. Cain accepts the idea and decides to study nobility alongside adventuring, as well as magic and magical tools. He then asks what they plan to choose. Celis says she will study nobility and internal affairs. Cain is surprised and asks why. She replies that she wants to manage their household properly once they are married. Selic adds that she will study nobility and commerce so she can help develop their future lands, reminding him that they are also engaged. At that moment, Cain notices a group of boys harassing a girl and recognizes her as Parma. The one leading them is the Marquis's son, known for his arrogant demeanor. Cain steps in, and when the boy realizes who he is facing, he falls silent. Cain asks why they are bullying his friend. One of the boys responds that Cain should not side with her against nobles like them. Cain answers that everyone is equal here, and that he stands with his friends. The boy threatens to involve his father and ruin Parma's family. Celis and Selic intervene at once, asking what is happening. Celis calmly suggests informing her father. The boy immediately apologizes to her. Celis tells him that his apology should be directed to the one he bullied. The boys apologize to Parma and flee. Parma thanks Cain afterward, saying she is glad they attend the same academy, though disappointed they are not in the same class. Cain reassures her, telling her that being in Class A is impressive, and that she can rely on him if she ever needs help. Parma thanks him again, and Cain returns to speaking with Celis and Selic. A voice then calls out to Cain, one he does not recognize. It tells him to come to the library. Cain follows the voice. When he opens the library door, the scenery shifts, and he finds himself in an unfamiliar space. He steps into what appears to be a palace and meets a man who asks if he likes coffee. Cain answers yes, then cautiously asks who the man is and how coffee exists in this world. The man replies that he has been waiting for him for a long time, addressing him as Cain, then by the name Shina. Cain freezes in shock, realizing the man knows his name from his previous life. Cain sits down with the man and learns the truth. The man is also from another world, and he is the first king, Yuya. Cain tells him that he read the Imperial class magic book attributed to the first king, though that book dates back 300 years. At first, Cain suspects that Yuya might be a spirit or some lingering presence, but Yuya laughs and tells him to use appraisal magic and see for himself. Cain asks if that is acceptable. Yuya agrees. When Cain checks, he sees that Yuya exists as a legend, no different from the 7 legends Cain once met. The realization leaves him stunned. Yuya shifts the conversation and tells Cain that the 7 legends asked him to train him. Cain questions the reason, saying that his overwhelming power has already caused him nothing but trouble. Yuya responds by holding out a biscuit and asking Cain to take it from him. Cain tries and fails. Yuya calmly tells him that he still has a long way to go. Cain asks why he needs to grow any stronger at all. Yuya answers that there is someone Cain must face. When Cain does not understand, Yuya explains that 300 years ago, a single individual caused nations across the world to turn against one another. Cain asks how such a thing was even possible. Yuya explains that the man planted distrust and betrayal between countries, slowly pushing them into conflict until war spread everywhere. That man is Aaron, the Lord of Evil. Yuya and his companions managed to seal him away 3 centuries ago, but the seal has begun to weaken. If nothing is done, Aaron will return. Cain asks why Aaron cannot simply be sealed again. Yuya replies that it is no longer possible and that this time, Cain alone must face him. He adds that Cain's previous life will play an important role in what is to come. Cain asks what that means, but instead of answering, Yuya uses teleportation magic and brings him to another location. They arrive on a quiet shore beside the sea. Yuya hands Cain a sword and tells him that from this moment on, he will be Cain's master. He says that once Cain completes his task and succeeds in taking the biscuit from him, he will explain everything. With that, Yuya turns to leave. Cain calls out, asking him to at least explain what role his past life plays. Yuya hands him a compass and tells him to follow where it points. He says Cain will understand once they meet again. He adds that Cain must grow much stronger, remarking that his current level is far too low, and that he must reach at least level 600 to defeat Aaron. Cain begins to worry about how long he has been gone from the academy, but Yuya reassures him that time flows differently here. 1 year in this place equals only a single day in Cain's world. With that, Yuya disappears, returning to his palace and leaving Cain alone. Cain realizes that he has no choice but to move forward. He enters the forest and begins fighting the monsters that attack him. As he pushes onward, he believes only a few minutes have passed since he arrived. Determined to finish quickly, he continues clearing every threat in his path. Meanwhile, Sylvia grows deeply worried. When someone knocks at the door, she opens it, hoping to see Cain, but instead finds Celis and Selic accompanied by their guards. When they learn Cain is not there, they grow anxious as well. 2 days have already passed without his return. Selic admits she assumed he would be home when he did not appear at the academy. Sylvia's fear intensifies as she imagines the worst, wondering if he was kidnapped, injured, or ambushed. Selic shares her concern, but Celis remains calm. She says she is certain Cain is safe and insists they wait, confident that he will return on his own. Back in the forest, Cain continues fighting. Exhaustion overtakes him, and at one point, a monster manages to grab hold of him. As his strength fades, he thinks that he may never leave this forest. He forces himself to fight back, defeats the creature, and collapses. Lying there, he thinks that he has not slept properly in a month and no longer has the strength to think about anything at all. At that moment, he hears a faint sound and forces himself to investigate. He finds a small monster, wounded and groaning. Cain raises his sword, intending to end its suffering. As he looks into its eyes, an image from his previous life surfaces, the memory of the girl he once saved. His grip loosens. He throws the sword aside and apologizes for frightening the creature. Despite his exhaustion, he uses magic to heal it. His power falters, but he continues until the wound closes. The moment he finishes, Cain collapses and loses consciousness. While Cain sleeps, the small monster stays by his side, fending off other creatures that approach. When Cain finally wakes, he finds the little monster standing guard. It rushes toward him, clearly relieved. Cain looks at it and asks if it would like to come with him. The monster agrees, and Cain sets off again, no longer alone. Cain names the creature Hakko, and the two continue clearing the forest side by side. As time passes, Hakko steadily grows larger, and Cain's strength increases with each battle. Eventually, they reach the palace, and Cain enters together with Hakko to meet Yua once more. Yua welcomes him and remarks that he has grown considerably. Cain answers that of course he has, asking whether Yua even realizes how many years have passed. Yua replies that it has been roughly 4 years. He then looks at Hakko and asks if the creature is named Fencer. Cain corrects him, saying his name is Hakko. Yua shakes his head and explains that Hakko is a legendary beast. Cain turns to Hakko and comments that he must be quite special. Yua adds that if such a creature trusts Cain this deeply, they can form a contract. Cain does not understand what that means, so Yua explains that a contract allows Cain to summon Hakko anytime and anywhere. Cain then realizes that the contract has already been formed. At that moment, Hakko vanishes. Seeing Cain's reaction, Yua tells him not to worry, explaining that he can summon Hakko whenever he wishes. Yua then tells Cain that his training is not yet complete. He introduces another man and says that Cain will now train under him. This man is Dorentol, Cain's new master. Cain introduces himself, then asks Yua about the promise he made to explain how everything connects to Aaron and his past life. Yua agrees and says they will talk before Cain leaves this world. Cain begins training with Dorentol, who defeats him with a single strike. Afterward, Dorentol takes Cain to his home. When Cain wakes, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place, with Hakko nearby, playing happily. Cain goes downstairs and meets Dorentol and his wife. She welcomes him warmly, introduces herself as Rory, and tells him that Dorentol brought him there the previous day. She invites him to sit while she prepares a meal. Cain then hears a sound, and looks down to find a small dragon. Excited, he rushes over, but before he can speak, Hakko starts fighting with the little dragon. Rory immediately scolds them, warning that neither of them will be fed if they continue. The fight stops at once. Cain begins eating and suddenly breaks into tears. Dorentol asks whether something is wrong or if he dislikes the food. Cain quickly denies it, saying the meal is delicious and that he has not eaten anything of such quality in a long time. Rory is pleased by his reaction. Dorentol mentions that Yua told him Cain survived alone in the wild for 4 years. Cain confirms this, repeating that it has been a long time since he ate proper food. Dorentol tells him to eat as much as he wants, and Rory assures him that he will stay with them from now on, and that she will always prepare plenty of food. Meanwhile, Celis and Selik remain at the palace, preparing meals. Selik worries about Cain, but Celis reassures her, saying that the knights are searching and that all they can do is wait. Selik agrees. Cain continues training under Dorentol for an entire year. During this time, he recalls what Yua told him about Aaron and his past life. Aaron is the lord of evil in this world, and Cain must grow strong enough to defeat him, or Aaron will destroy everything Cain holds dear. Cain learns that his parents from his previous life were killed by Aaron. They were friends of Yua and died while trying to save the world. Returning to the present, Cain resumes sparring with Dorentol. After countless battles, Cain finally defeats him. When his training ends, Cain rushes to Yuya's palace and visits the graves of his parents, where he breaks down in tears. He then bids farewell to Master Yua and Master Dorentol, telling them that he will soon return to his own world. He leaves with Hakko and the small dragon Jin. Watching him go, Dorentol and Yua laugh together. Dorentol says that Cain will surpass all of them. Yua agrees without hesitation. Cain finally returns to his palace. The moment he enters, Sylvia bursts into tears and runs to him, followed closely by Celis and Selik. Cain apologizes for making them worry. Celis tells him that they always believed he would return. She explains that they even asked Sylvia to teach them how to make sweets and prepared biscuits for him. Cain smiles, eats them eagerly, and thanks them all. Cain goes to see the king and delivers a message, explaining that he spent those 5 days with the first king. The king responds calmly, saying that the first king created a separate world, and Cain proceeds to explain everything in detail. He then takes out the sword given to him by the first king. The moment they see it, the atmosphere changes. The king recognizes the blade at once and understands that Cain truly met the first king. The king looks at Cain and says that according to the records, Cain trained under the first king. Cain confirms it and adds that the training was extremely harsh. He explains that he survived in the forest and trained under Doreen, and that the experience lasted 5 years. The king reacts sharply, asking how Cain could have spent 5 years there. At that moment, the Duke interrupts and explains that while Cain was missing, a notice arrived from the Adventurers Guild. Cain must take the promotion exam for rank A, and if he fails to do so soon, his registration will be revoked. Cain immediately heads to the guild and meets the guildmaster. They discuss the mission required for Cain's promotion to rank A. The time limit is approaching, and if Cain does not complete the task, his contract will be cancelled and his registration invalidated. The guildmaster asks whether Cain will accept the mission immediately. Cain agrees without hesitation. The mission is to capture a group of bandits operating on the road between Gracia and the royal capital. The guildmaster explains that there are more than 10 bandits involved, and remarks that Cain should be able to handle it easily, given his strength. Cain departs at once and begins scouting the road from the air. He soon locates the bandits who have stopped 2 adventurers and the merchant they are escorting. When Cain lands, he realizes that the adventurers are Millie and Nina, and the merchant is Sabino's. Seeing that Millie is injured, Cain rushes to heal her. The bandits, unable to recognize him, assume he is weak. Cain defeats them swiftly and captures them all. Sabino's thanks him, and Millie asks why he is there. Cain explains that he accepted a subjugation mission from the guild. Millie is stunned, and points out that Cain is only 12 years old, and should not even be registered yet. Nina adds that subjugation missions are meant for adventurers of rank C or higher. Cain responds by showing them his gold card, revealing that he is ranked A. Both of them are left speechless. Cain escorts the captured bandits to the guild and, along the way, reunites Parma with her father. She is startled by the sight of the criminals, and Cain explains that they are bandits he apprehended on a guild mission. Parma comments that balancing such dangerous work with his duties as a baron must be difficult. Millie and Nina react in shock. Millie asks if Cain truly became a baron and jokes that she should start addressing him formally. Cain quickly tells her not to change anything, saying that they are still his teachers. He says goodbye, explaining that he must deliver the criminals to the guild without delay. Millie and Nina accompany him. At the guild, Cain hands the bandits over to Ricia and submits a letter from Sabino's confirming that Cain handled the entire situation alone. Ricia is astonished by how quickly he completed the mission, and tells him she will report it to the guildmaster immediately. At that moment, a group of troublemakers approaches and begins harassing Millie and Nina. When Cain steps toward them, they immediately panic and collapse to the ground. Claude arrives and remarks that he recognized the sudden surge of power and realized it must be Cain. Cain greets him and Claude comments that if Cain were an ordinary person, those men would have caused serious trouble. Cain replies that they were bothering his friends. Claude asks who they are and is surprised to see Millie and Nina. Cain is equally shocked to learn that Millie is Claude's younger sister. Millie explains to Claude and his wife Lena that she and Nina were Cain's instructors when he was 5 years old. They sit together afterward and celebrate. Millie and Nina recount the events of the mission and their reunion with Cain. Nina mentions that Cain is now ranked A, which leaves Claude stunned, especially considering how recently Cain registered. Claude then recalls that Cain was the only student who managed to stand against him during the academy exam. Their surprise deepens when they learn that Cain also became a baron. After talking for a while, Cain suddenly remembers that he has school the next morning and quickly excuses himself to return home. The following day, the teacher announces that the class will practice magic by casting spells at targets. However, she adds that Cain will not be participating. His power is far too great and poses a danger, so he is instructed to observe instead. Later, Claude, Millie, Nina, and Lena arrive at the academy as guest instructors. They are the adventurers assigned to assist with the students' training. The students stare in awe, especially those who recognize Claude and Lena as the pair known as the Flames of Ice. Cain quietly thinks that they could have told him they were coming beforehand. Claude asks which students are registered adventurers, and every student raises a hand. He then asks them to present their adventurer cards. Cain remains still. Claude calls out to him and tells him to show his card as well. Cain answers that he forgot it, unwilling to draw attention by revealing his gold card. Training continues, but time runs out before Cain has the chance to train with anyone or do anything at all. He watches in silence, feeling unsettled. That night, Cain goes alone into the forest. His emotions boil over, and his power erupts unchecked. The forest is reduced to ruins, and in the chaos, he slays a dragon without even realizing it. Alarmed by the destruction, soldiers rush toward the forest under Garm's command, believing the demon lord has appeared. When they arrive and find nothing left standing, they come to a single conclusion. Cain was responsible. Cain later goes to see the king. The royal assistant informs him that Garm sent a report stating that while returning to Gracia, he encountered news of the demon lord's appearance in the monster forest, which was completely destroyed. The court assumes the demon lord is behind it. One of the advisors suggests forming alliances with other nations in preparation. Cain immediately objects, saying there is no need for that. The king asks why he is so certain. Cain hesitates and answers that it is just a feeling. The king looks at him closely and asks whether Cain is hiding something. Cain lowers his head, admits the truth, and offers a deep apology. At the same time, far away, Aaron remains in his dragon form. As his seal weakens, he begins breaking it little by little, vowing that once freed, he will bring complete destruction upon the world. Back at the academy, class is underway. The teacher announces that today's lesson will focus on summoning magic, then calls Cain's name first. Cain responds calmly, assuming he will once again be excluded and made to study alone. The teacher corrects him, explaining that they will not be using offensive magic, so he will participate this time. Cain's expression brightens, and he thanks her. She adds that she has brought a specialist to assist with the lesson. The man introduces himself as Grat, explaining that he serves as a royal guard at the palace. He tells the students that summoning magic comes in two forms. The first involves forming a bond with a beast through a contract. The second involves summoning a creature through a magic circle and then forming a contract with it. Cain responds that he has already formed contracts with Hakko and Jin and can summon them freely. Grat distributes summoning circles and instructs the students to attempt summoning and contracting with creatures. One after another, small and harmless creatures appear. However, one student summons a large and frightening beast and attempts to form a contract. The creature rejects him. Grat explains that the student's magical power is insufficient, which is why the contract failed. When it is Cain's turn, Grat tells him to demonstrate his magic. Cain agrees but feels uneasy, recalling what happened when he was younger. Grat reassures him, explaining that if a contract fails, the summoned being will disappear immediately, so he should not hold back. Relieved, Cain pours all of his magic into the spell. In that instant, the demon lord appears and announces himself. Cain reacts immediately, casting flash magic to block everyone's vision. The demon lord approaches him, speaking down to him, then pauses as he senses Cain's aura. He draws closer, prompting Cain to draw his sword. Without warning, the demon lord drops to his knees and apologizes for his disrespect. He declares that he will serve Cain as his follower and begs not to be killed, addressing him as the chosen one. Cain is left confused by the sudden shift. The demon lord introduces himself as Sith, and says he is willing to form a contract, even offering the full force of the demon tribe, if Cain ever wishes to destroy a nation. Cain rejects the idea outright, saying he has no intention of destroying anything and has no need for such power. Sith accepts this without resistance and states that if they form a contract, Cain will be able to summon him at will. Cain agrees, on the condition that Sith stop calling him the Chosen One and use his name instead. The contract is formed. Sith tells Cain to summon him whenever he desires, then disappears. Vision returns to the classroom. The students and teachers stand frozen in shock. Grat asks whether the being was someone merely claiming to be the demon lord. Cain replies calmly that it was, but adds that the contract failed, so the creature vanished immediately. Grat reports the incident to the king. Cain is summoned at once. The king asks him directly what he summoned during class. Cain hesitates and apologizes, saying his magic summoned something unusual. The king presses him to be honest. Cain admits that it was the demon lord. The king, the duke, and the advisor are left speechless. The king asks what happened next, and whether Cain attempted to summon him again, remarking that he knows Cain well enough to suspect it. Cain lowers his head in embarrassment and admits that he did form a contract with the demon lord. Shock spreads through the room once more. The king raises his voice, asking whether Cain has ever heard of restraint, warning that the demon lord could have destroyed the royal capital in an instant. Cain apologizes repeatedly, explaining that he never expected such a being to appear. Grat adds that summoning a creature is one thing, but summoning the demon lord is entirely different, and asks just how much magical power Cain possesses. The king remarks that the first king must have strengthened Cain's magic even further. He then orders Cain to reveal his status, instructing Grat that what he is about to see must never be spoken of, declaring it a national secret punishable by death if leaked. When Cain reveals his status, the numbers surpass anything measurable, reaching a level comparable to legends. The king and those present fall silent, realizing that Cain's power exceeds all known limits. The king states plainly that with such power, Cain could destroy the world itself. Cain asks nervously to be treated as he always has. The king responds by announcing Cain's promotion to the rank of count and grants him land near the royal capital. He explains that Cain must prove his ability to govern land properly before his engagement is made public, as ruling territory is essential to protecting the kingdom in the future. Later, Cain shares the news with Sylvia. She congratulates him warmly and asks about the land he will rule. Cain replies that it has not been decided yet, only that it will be near the capital. Sylvia smiles and tells him she is sure he will do well. Soon after, Kulan arrives with urgent news. Lord Garm has received a report from Lord Jen in Gracia stating that something terrible is happening in the Forest of Beasts. Cain is stunned and heads out immediately. He goes to see his older brother Jen at the palace, where he is welcomed warmly after such a long absence. The two discuss the situation in the forest and realize how dangerous it has become. Cain says he intends to investigate it himself. Jen strongly objects, saying he cannot allow that risk. Cain calmly shows his adventurer card, revealing his A rank. Jen is shocked and asks when that happened. Cain reassures him that he will be fine and asks him not to worry. After a moment, Jen agrees and promises to support him however he can. Cain decides to gather information first and heads to the Adventurers Guild. There, a young receptionist underestimates him until he shows his A rank card, leaving her flustered. Rudy soon arrives, apologizing for the new employee's behavior and greeting Cain warmly. She asks why he has come. Cain explains that he is there because of the forest incident, adding that the situation is so severe that no one can approach the area, and that those who tried returned badly injured. At that moment, Millie and Nina arrive. Cain greets them and asks what they are doing there. Millie answers by asking the same question. Cain explains that this is his homeland and that his brother governs the area, so he came to help. Nina adds that the guild summoned all high-ranked adventurers. Cain asks if they already entered the forest. Millie confirms they did and says the beasts were extremely strong. She also notes that the monsters are moving in organized groups, which is unusual. She mentions that her brother and his wife are on their way, and that they plan to join them. Rudy asks Cain what he plans to do. Cain answers that he intends to investigate the forest alone. Millie objects, suggesting they wait and go together since Claude is also coming. Cain insists that he needs to assess the situation as quickly as possible. Rudy warns him that if anything happens to him, it would cause serious political problems, as he is now both a noble and a landholder. Cain assures her that he is strong. Millie and Nina confirm this without hesitation. Rudy reluctantly agrees but tells him to at least take someone with him. Cain answers that he already has someone in mind. Cain enters the forest and summons Hakko and Jin, who rush to his side with excitement. Together, they move deeper, defeating every beast that attacks. As they advance, Cain senses a powerful presence watching him, though he cannot identify it. He summons Sith for assistance. Sith tells him that something with overwhelming power is observing them. Cain asks for more details. Sith explains that he has an exceptionally skilled scout who is absolutely loyal and asks permission to summon him. Cain agrees without hesitation. As Cain charges toward Aaron, Sith summons his followers to hold back the remaining beasts. At the same time, Millie and Nina grow uneasy about Cain's absence and head toward the forest to support him, with Claude and Lena moving alongside them. Cain cuts through the advancing monsters until Aaron finally emerges from his cave. Aaron unleashes a powerful attack and addresses Cain directly, saying that he expected him to come, accusing him of slaughtering the beasts and mocking him as a servant of the 7 ancient elders who arrived sooner than expected. When Millie, Nina, Claude, and Lena reach the forest, they are taken aback by the sight before them. Creatures aligned with the Dark Lord are driving back the beasts. Nina remarks that they must be Cain's allies, and the others agree. Some monsters slip past Sith's forces and rush toward them, forcing Claude's group to engage in battle. Aaron grows irritated as he faces Cain, and says that Cain's eyes remind him of those who sealed him away long ago. Cain answers that Aaron must be speaking of his parents. Aaron attacks without hesitation, and a fierce clash begins. Nearby, Claude's group continues fighting as the Knight Commander arrives with a detachment of soldiers to reinforce them. Claude thanks her but insists they will stand together to protect the town. During the battle, Aaron strikes Hakko and Jin, leaving them badly wounded. Kane's restraint breaks. He intercepts Aaron's next attack and unleashes a devastating counterstrike, erasing the landscape behind Aaron without realizing the extent of the destruction. Hakko and Jin try to warn him, but Kane snaps at them, telling them not to interrupt while he is fighting. Sith and his summoned follower intervene at once, stopping Kane and warning him that he is losing control. Kane shouts that he is still fighting the dragon. They answer that there is no dragon left, that Aaron has already fallen, the beasts have fled, and the forest is secure. The danger has passed. Afterward, Kane reunites with his companions, and they share a brief moment of relief. Later, Kane is summoned before the king. As usual, the king reprimands him for excessive use of power. After scolding him at length, the king acknowledges Kane's contribution and announces a reward. A formal assembly of nobles is convened, and Kane is officially appointed as a count and granted governance over the region of Dorentol. Kane accepts the title and vows to dedicate himself fully to the kingdom. When Kane's friends learn which territory he has been given, they react with concern. They explain that Dorentol is known as the place where the Adventurers Guild sends its most dangerous missions, causing previous nobles to abandon it. Silas suggests asking her father to change the assignment, but Kane refuses. He says he is looking forward to rebuilding the town from the ground up. They depart for Dorentol, with Kane entering the town first under the guise of an ordinary adventurer. Elsewhere, a royal guard reports to the king what happened upon Kane's arrival. According to his account, the Adventurers Guild attempted to execute Kane under the pretense of a welcome ceremony, but instead, Kane defeated them, leaving the arena severely damaged. The guard adds that Kane expelled the corrupt adventurers and imprisoned guards who had mistreated the townspeople. At the same time, Kane explains the situation in Dorentol to Celis and Selic, describing how badly the town had been neglected. Suddenly, Sith appears and asks Kane for assistance. Silas and Selic recognize him at once and identify him as the Dark Lord. Sith explains that his wife expelled him from their home after learning of his actions. Before he can say more, his wife Lavani appears behind him, demanding to know why he came there and scolding him for the trouble he caused. Lavani introduces herself to Kane and the others, then grabs Sith by the ear and apologizes for his behavior. Kane introduces himself in return. Lavani asks him directly what he thinks of Sith as a man. Kane immediately sides with her and criticizes Sith honestly. Silas and Selic follow his lead, joining Lavani in her complaints. Lavani thanks them, saying they voiced exactly what she had wanted to say. With that, Lavani drags Sith away, and the two leave together.